there has been I guess you could call it an issue, right, Jody? Would you call it an issue? An issue brewing around the Alamo. Yes, the Alamo down in San Antonio. There are some who want to reimagine. I think that's what they're calling it, reimagining the Alamo. And there's this whole big plan that's involved to reimagine the Alamo and to do a few different things with it. Though there's been no official plan put forward, except for a lot of talk that's been going on back and forth. And joining us on the phones right now, some folks who are concerned about what some of the plans may actually turn out to be. Those who want to save the Alamo. You've heard the ads for savethealamo.us here on the station. Rick Range joining us right now. Rick, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Very well. And you?
Doing well. Appreciate you joining us today. So for those who haven't been keeping up with what's going on with the Alamo and this plan to reimagine the Alamo, tell us first what, at least as far as what we know, what the plans are to reimagine the Alamo.
Well, it started off a few years back. For several years, actually, we tried to get a bill through the legislature to put the site back to the 1836 setting as much as possible and give the people a better idea of what the battle conditions were and what they were faced with, and it got passed in the legislature. And then George P. Bush came in, and he just totally turned the thing on its head. And they're saying that they want the focus now to not be the 1836 battle. It's all a part of the political correctness thing that's sweeping the country. But they want to take the focus off the battle, have it just another mission, and they were going to encase it with glass see-through walls. They claim to have backed off of that, quote, tabled it, since was getting so much political heat. But it's really not, they haven't said it's been eliminated, but people just hated that. But the thing he said earlier was that the focus had to be taken off the battle in order to promote unity and not division in our society. And that was his philosophy behind all this. So it was going to take the whole meaning out of the battle, and it had a lot of bad features in it. They were going to, not only the walls, but they were going to create a First Amendment area back there right next to the church, tear all that beautiful botanical garden area, just a lot of ridiculous things. And so what we did back last summer, they had a thing they called the Big Reveal last spring, which was a series of 3 hearings that they supposedly were wanting public input, but the speakers got up, and when this was revealed, the points of the plan, they just got up and one at a time. There was a total of 170 people. Every single one of them spoke out against it. They just hated it. And these people just totally disregarded what they were being told. They went forward anyway and basically said, well, it doesn't matter what you think, we're going to do what we want. And, of course, the latest big issue has been moving the Cenotaph, that memorial to the defenders that has all their names.
Beautiful memorial.
On it.
Beautiful memorial.
And the city, the big problem there is the mayor is a revisionist history radical. There's some of the councilmen, the same thing. That's why they went out here a few weeks ago and yanked that statue out of Travis Park that had been there in the dead of night. They just went in there and yanked it. Just never would give the people a referendum. Just did what they wanted to. And now they're threatening to do the same thing to the Cenotaph. They've thrown up these bogus reasonings saying, well, it needs major repair, and there's absolutely no evidence for that. They're talking about taking it off site, tearing it apart, then reassembling it a year later, and then moving it several blocks to the south, completely off the Alamo site, stuck back between some condominiums where it'll never be seen. The other reason they try to say is that it has something, it's part of an old legend that this had something to do with the burning of the bodies. It was a funeral pyre or memorial, which is all hokum. The bodies were actually burned 500 yards away, And the place that they're talking about putting this thing is not even where they were burned. Where they were actually burned is now part of the river extension up next to the mall, so you'd have to be hanging the thing in midair to put it where the burning really took place.
I don't think they're gonna do that.
No, I don't either. But it's all red herrings. The real reason they want to move it is because it's a symbol and it's directly tied to the battle, and it's part of the plan of getting the focus off of the battle. That's what's really behind it. And so that's been the latest thing. That's why we had the big rally down there last Saturday. We had hundreds of people. We had all the TV media. We had great articles in the Austin San Antonio paper. But the problem had been that, like I say, prior to last summer, none of these details about the plan were known at all outside of Bexar County. They had sent out no press releases. There was no media coverage. Nobody knew it was going on. They didn't even know there was a plan, much less what was in the plan. So we started this website called SaveTheAlamo.us to try to start getting the truth out to the people of Texas so that they would know what's going on. And it started growing, and then we had a rumor, the first rumor about the city saying that they had to remove the Cenotaph to prevent racial division, unquote. And we posted that, and the thing just went viral overnight. It jumped from like 10,000 people to 250,000 in one night. It just really struck a nerve, and it's been growing ever since. So that's been the most immediate threat is this threat that they've had against the Cenotaph and what they were going to do to it.
Well, and Rick, I mean, you look at the history of the Alamo. You look at the Alamo. It has been, I would make the argument, and I'm sure you would agree with this. It's a unifier. You talk about they want to take the focus off the battle to unify people. The battle has unified people. I mean, I don't run into really anyone who is offended by the Alamo or the Battle of the Alamo. So what is this? Who started? Do you know who started this idea that we're going to have unity now in Texas or down in San Antonio if we remove the focus on the Battle of the Alamo?
George P. Bush, in conjunction with that San Antonio mayor and city council. And, of course, if Bush knew anything about Texas history, he would know that you had not only the Anglo settlers in there, but you had Texas Mexican Tejanos.
Yeah.
You had blacks, both slave and free. So they were all unified. They all died, and they all bled the same red blood. And so they were totally unified. So this is just a bogus, again, it's one of these politically correct mindset theories but he's the one that's actually creating the division. As you said, everybody was unified. They all love the Alamo. People come from all over the world every year, and that's why it's famous, as you know, due to the battle.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that it was just another mission. There's 4 other missions down there that was recognized as a World Heritage Site due to the mission system, and the Alamo was the 5th mission, but actually it never really functioned very long as a mission at all. They never even finished as you know, at the time of the battle, it still didn't have a roof on the church. Yeah. So for the vast majority of its history, it was a military outpost. They secularized it. It started in 1724. By 93, they secularized it, and then in 1803, that Alamo de Parras Company came up from Coahuila, Mexico, and it became a battle garrison to protect the town. So it was always military, and then the Texans came in, took over Bexar during the Revolution. You had the Battle of the Alamo, and then after the Alamo, the U.S. Army came in there in 1845. Then the Confederates had it. Then it went back to the U.S. until they built Fort Sam Houston in 1876. So the vast majority of the time, the place was military, not a mission anyway.
Right.
But they're trying to put the focus totally on the mission era, do away with the battle, do away with the Cenotaph, and that's what we're trying to stop.
And what would you like to see if, let's say, and I don't think he's going to give you a call, but let's say George P. Bush were to give you a call and ask you how you would like to, and they're calling this reimagining the Alamo. What would you like to see done with the grounds? Because you talked about expanding, right? You talked about expanding.
Yes, sir. I would like to see done what was the original intent of the legislature, and we had several people present before the Senate Finance Committee. They had a great video with that Red McCombs, Henry Cisneros, the ex-mayor, all proposing to, as much as possible, put the place back in the appearance it had in 1836, where people could actually see. You know, you go down there now, all you see is the church and the law barracks, and people walk away wondering, well, is this all there was? Well, that thing was huge. It encompassed 3 acres. The walls, the north wall went way up into the post office up there, people that are familiar with that area, and it was huge. And what we wanted to do was rebuild some of the walls where it's practical, build a brand new multifaceted museum that could tell the whole story of the site, including the mission period, all periods. But it would be primarily focused on the battle era. And as far as outside, you could rebuild certain sections of the walls. You could rebuild the main gate, the main entrance at the south, where they had the defensive lunette outside. They were an attempt to try to get that federal building up there, the old post office, and turn that into the museum. And there you could actually rebuild part of the north wall, which had the battery platform for the cannon. That was where Travis was killed. And so there's a lot of features like that are practical and could be done. And of course, you'd have to start off with a lot of good archaeology to verify where things were. And you could take some of that and put it under glass. We know that some of those post holes of that famous stockade fence that Crockett supposedly defended are in the ground. That was dug up about 1990, and about 6 feet of it, and they found the original post holes. Well, you could take sections like that, put it under glass covering. They did the same thing in Jamestown, Virginia. And it would really something neat for people to be able to come in and see the actual thing in the ground. And then you could go a few feet out and rebuild the actual structure that was there. Yeah. And you could see both. And so there's just a lot of great things that could be done if you had people in there running it that had a clue. But Bush brought in these totally out-of-state people. The guy that was head master planner, George Scarmaeus, he got up at one of the meetings, by the way, and said, they asked him, are you going to rebuild the 36 area? And he went on for a long time. He said, we got 10,000 years of history here. And his famous quote was, we cannot single out one moment in time, meaning the battle. Wow. So the battle was just going to be a footnote.
Rick, we've got to get going, but I want you to tell folks how they can get more information and follow this follow this on y'all's website.
Yes, sir. The easiest way to go is savethealamo.us. Now, that's very important because just yesterday we found out that they've been pulling all these deceitful tricks, not telling the truth. Well, they went out here and got a website called alamotruth.com to divert people from getting to the true site, and it's got all their false propaganda on there. So I want to make sure everybody understands that it's alamotruth.us, like United States. That's the one to go to, not the .com. That's just another political ploy that Bush has pulled here out of desperation.
And they can also go to savethealamo.us, correct?
Yes, sir. So that's the one to go to, savethealamo.us, and we would ask you to go there and also then to Facebook and email to every single person you can, because right now there's probably 80% plus of the voters that still do not know about the plan. They don't know it exists, much less what's in it. Yeah. And the only way of stopping this at this point, we've tried the legislature, the governor, every other meeting. Right now, the only way of stopping this is next March the 4th, is we've got to have a new land commissioner for the state of Texas. We've got to defeat George P. Bush, or this thing is going through, and it's going to be a plan designed to the desires. On their own website, it says that Bush and the mayor will be the deciders. It doesn't matter what the master plan approval is. When all is said and done, they're going to be the ones that write the plan. So you're going to end up with a plan designed by the mayor and all of his radical allies down there, and that's what's going to be the future of the Alamo. It's going to be a disaster.
Rick, I appreciate your time today, and we'll visit with you down the road to see how things are going, okay?
Thank you so much for having us on.
Absolutely. That's Rick Range joining us here on the Chad Hasty Show, savethealamo.us.